Tonight, we are bearing witness to a world submerged. Across continents, from bustling megacities to quiet rural towns, the waters are rising. July 2025 will be remembered as a month of unprecedented flooding, a synchronized global crisis that has spared few. The images are stark, the stories are heartbreaking. This is not a distant problem or a future prediction. It is happening now, to millions of people simultaneously. It is a stark reminder of our planet's fragility and the immense power of nature when its delicate balance is disturbed. In southern China, the Pearl River Delta, a region synonymous with explosive economic growth, is now the epicenter of a catastrophic flood event. The provinces of Guangdong and Guangxi have been pummeled by weeks of torrential rain, turning vast swathes of this densely populated area into a murky, brown sea. Major cities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen are grappling with inundated subways and flooded streets, bringing daily life to a standstill. The sheer volume of water has overwhelmed the region's sophisticated flood control systems, a stark illustration that even modern engineering can be defeated by the ferocity of these new, climate-supercharged storms. The People's Liberation Army and emergency responders have been deployed by the thousands, navigating submerged neighborhoods in inflatable rafts and military amphibious vehicles. Their mission is a race against time, plucking stranded families from the rooftops of apartment buildings and delivering essential supplies to communities that have been completely cut off from the outside world. Further inland, in Hunan province, the situation is equally dire. The Xiang River, a major tributary of the Yangtze, has breached its banks, inundating vast agricultural plains that are critical to the nation's food supply. Reports are emerging of smaller, older dams being at risk of failure, forcing authorities into making nightmarish decisions about preemptive releases that could flood downstream communities. The United States is facing its own battle with historic flooding, far from the hurricane-prone coasts. In the hills of eastern Kentucky, a series of relentless thunderstorms has turned creeks and hollows into raging, destructive rivers. Entire communities have been washed away, with homes torn from their foundations and carried downstream like driftwood. Search and rescue operations in Kentucky are incredibly challenging. First responders, including the National Guard, are navigating terrain littered with debris, collapsed bridges and mudslides that have made many roads impassable. Neighbors are helping neighbors, forming makeshift flotillas with fishing boats and john boats to check on the elderly and isolated. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, a different type of flood crisis is unfolding. A stalled weather front has dumped record-setting rainfall across Missouri, causing major rivers like the Missouri and Merrimack to swell to historic crests. St. Louis is fighting to protect its critical infrastructure, with flood walls being strained to their absolute limits. Further south, parts of Texas are also reeling from extreme rainfall. Urban centers like Dallas and Houston have experienced severe flash flooding, as concrete jungles prove incapable of absorbing the deluge. The city's bayou and drainage systems, designed for past weather patterns, have been overwhelmed, turning highways into canals and trapping thousands of commuters in their vehicles. The annual monsoon season in South Asia has arrived with terrifying force this year. In India, particularly in the northeastern states of Assam and Bihar, the Brahmaputra River has swollen into a vast churning lake, displacing millions of people. Entire villages have disappeared, leaving residents with nothing but the clothes on their backs, huddled in makeshift relief camps on the few remaining slivers of high ground. The floods have inundated national parks, including the famed Kaziranga National Park, threatening its vulnerable population of one-horned rhinoceroses and other endangered wildlife, a tragic consequence of the extreme weather. Neighboring Pakistan is facing a similar catastrophe, echoing the so-called super floods of years past, but with renewed intensity. The Indus River, fed by melting glaciers in the Himalayas and unusually heavy monsoon rains, has burst its banks across the provinces of Sindh and Punjab. The sheer expanse of the inundated land is visible from space, a heartbreaking testament to the scale of the disaster. International aid agencies are scrambling to provide food, clean water, and shelter, but the destruction of roads and bridges makes reaching the affected millions a logistical nightmare. Even regions less accustomed to such widespread flooding are not being spared. In Turkey, the Black Sea region has been hammered by severe flash floods and mudslides. Rescue efforts are perilous, with emergency crews digging through meters of thick mud in a desperate search for survivors. To understand this global onslaught of floods, we must look to the science, and the evidence is clear and overwhelming. The primary driver is our warming planet. The world's oceans, which have absorbed over 90% of the excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases, are now warmer than at any point in recorded history. Warmer ocean water evaporates more readily, feeding more moisture into the atmosphere. For every degree Celsius of warming, the atmosphere can hold about 7% more moisture. This means that when a storm system does form, it has access to a much larger reservoir of water vapor to draw from. Much of the world's flood control infrastructure, our dams, levees, storm drains, and sewer systems, was designed and built for a 20th century climate that no longer exists. In our cities, unchecked urban sprawl has replaced absorbent natural landscapes like forests and wetlands, with impermeable surfaces like concrete and asphalt, exacerbating runoff and turning streets into rivers. Finally, shifts in large-scale weather patterns, like the behavior of the jet stream, are also playing a crucial role. A wavier, slower jet stream, another potential consequence of a warming Arctic, can cause weather systems to stall. Instead of moving quickly across a region, powerful storms can now linger for days, dumping catastrophic amounts of rain on the same unfortunate area. We often decide which stories to cover based on the events of the day, but tonight's in-depth report was prompted by something different. It was inspired by a comment from one of you, our viewers. A viewer named Jenna M. wrote to us last week, and her message was simple but powerful. She wrote, "I'm seeing floods on the news from China, the US, India. It feels like it's happening everywhere at once. Can you please do a report that connects the dots and explains what's happening to our world?" Jenna, we heard you, and we thank you for that question because you are right. This is not a series of isolated incidents, it is one interconnected global story. Your comment, Jenna, highlights the importance of seeing the bigger picture. The science is clear, and the evidence is now washing over our doorsteps. The work ahead is immense. It involves not only immediate humanitarian aid for the millions affected, but also a long-term global commitment to building more resilient societies. It demands that we listen to the scientists and accelerate our transition to a cleaner, more sustainable future. So we end tonight where we began, with a call to remain engaged. We encourage you to follow the stories of those on the front lines, to support the relief efforts if you are able, and to demand that leaders take meaningful action. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and stay informed.